Well, we woke up this morning, we stepped outside, we took a big smells like football outside. That's because the offseason is now actually officially over. The NFL season starts tonight. Let's talk about it. Hi, hello, and welcome in to episode number 148 of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. Did I just say number instead of number? I don't know, but it's episode number 148 of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. If you hear me fidgeting through my notes, that's because I've got a lot to talk about today. The NFL is officially back. The NFL season is officially back. It starts tonight with the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Dallas Cowboys. As is tradition, the Super Bowl champion Eagles will open the season at home on a Thursday night, and no surprise, they'll be doing so up against their arch rival Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are the straw that stirs the drink in the National Football League, and they certainly will drive what will be a game that really doesn't need the ratings, but the Cowboys are going to give a huge number to the opening night game tonight in Philadelphia. So this episode of the podcast is going to be specifically about the rest of the NFL. I'm going to go through with what I think about some teams. I'm going to go through and give my opinions on a few teams, and I'm going to make my predictions for the 2025 season. We'll revisit this in February after the confetti has fallen, the parade is happening, and the Super Bowl has taken place. I'll walk you through who I think is going to make the playoffs in the AFC and the NFC. I've predicted the seedings. I've predicted the matchups. I've predicted a Super Bowl champion. That is all coming up. Then, later this week, I'm aiming for Saturday morning. We'll do a podcast that talks specifically about the Bengals and the Browns in this week's matchup against Cleveland, and then we'll try to repeat that schedule for the rest of the year, which would be a Thursday and a Saturday in which you get a new podcast. I don't know if that's exactly how it's going to go. We'll see. I want to wait until at least Wednesday to hear from Joe Burrow and to hear from Zach Taylor, and then kind of let that determine my path when it comes to talking about the Bengals. And then also I want to wait for the injury report and see if there's anything I can provide so that you get something on Friday night or Saturday morning that has you at least informed about the Bengals going into their game, which most likely usually is on a Sunday. So that's going to be, at least as of now, my schedule. We'll see how things change with work and whatnot and life and holidays and all the stuff that happens, but that is the tentative schedule for the NFL season right here on this podcast. It is going to be Thursdays prior to a Thursday night football game, and also Friday nights or Saturdays. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind, but that's the plan as of now. So this weekend, late tomorrow night or Saturday, you'll get the podcast specifically about the Bengals and Browns. It's not going to be very long. It's just enough for you to listen to on Saturday while you're getting your coffee, your donut, or you're going for your jog, or on Sunday if you're going to church, if you're going after church, if you're taking a walk, if you're at the grocery store, whatever it might be prior to the game on Sunday. So that's the plan. All right, let's get into it. First and foremost, the season starts tonight with the Eagles hosting the Dallas Cowboys, and then Friday it's the Kansas City Chiefs in Brazil, Sao Paulo, Brazil, up against cheating Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers. Note about those two, I heard Colin Cowherd talking about this, that the Chargers and Chiefs, Andy Reid and Jim Harbaugh, are the two best coaches in the NFL in season openers and in the month of September over the course of their careers, two of the very best. So that's going to be an interesting matchup because the Chargers have changed a little bit. They've fixed a few things. They have had a devastating offensive line injury, but I don't feel great about their weapons. I don't feel great about their running backs. I do think Omarion Hampton could be a big deal, but he's still a rookie, and I don't know if the Chargers are just going to let him go right away. I think the Chargers, I'm going to come out and say it now, might be the most fraudulent team in the NFL. Everyone's kind of talking him up, and everybody's talking about Jim Harbaugh, and that's cool, and he has a lot of success in the NFL, but I just don't have a lot of belief in those weapons. I don't have a lot of belief in that defense, and especially in that division where I think the Raiders are going to be better. I think the Broncos are going to be better. I think the Chiefs are still formidable. I don't know that the Chargers are going to be one of the teams that emerges from that group into the AFC playoffs. Then, when you look ahead to week number 1 in the NFL, we'll quickly go over the slate as to what's happening. So, Cowboys Eagles tonight, then Chargers Chiefs in Sao Paulo on Friday night, off on Saturday, obviously, for college football. And then the slate for Sunday is this: it's Bengals at Browns. Right now, as of Wednesday night when I'm recording this, the Cincinnati Bengals are a 5.5-point favorite in that game. It is the Cardinals at the Saints. Arizona 6.5-point favorites in that game. By the way, that game, lowest get-in price of any Week 1 game, $33 to get into that game at the Superdome in New Orleans. Dolphins are in Indianapolis to take on the Colts. You want to talk about a team that's facing a lot of pressure, a lot of question marks, a lot of concerns? That would be Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins. Who exactly is Tua, and can he stay healthy? Is Tyreek Hill washed, and is he a bad teammate? And what exactly is the future of this team in that division where where New England has gotten better, Buffalo still runs it, the Jets are a bit of a question mark. This is a big season for the Miami Dolphins. They're in Indy to start it. The Raiders are at the Patriots. We'll talk about the Patriots a little bit coming up. The Raiders, I think, are a sneaky team, and especially when you look at their schedule, they can be competitive. I don't know if I'm ready to put them in the playoffs yet. New England, 2.5-point favorites in that game. The Steelers are in New York to take on the Jets. It's Justin Fields against his old team and Aaron Rodgers against his old team. That's a 1 o'clock start. All these are 1 o'clock starts, by the way. Giants are at the Commanders. The Jaden Daniels tour starts round number 2. Curious to see if there'll be a sophomore slump for Jaden Daniels. Then the Panthers are at the Jags. I am very high on the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. I'll explain coming up in just a little bit. Jacksonville, 3.5-point favorites in that one. By the way, Commanders, 6.5-point favorites over the Giants, and Steelers, 2.5-point favorites over the Jets. Continuing on, 1 o'clock games, NFC South matchup. It's the Buccaneers at the Falcons. Tampa, only 1.5-point favorites in this game. Then we go out to the 4:05 slates. It's the 49ers at the Seahawks. San Francisco, a 2.5-point favorite. The Titans at the Broncos. Cam Ward, the number 1 overall pick in the draft, maybe the most or the least talked about number 1 pick of all time. He gets his first start against a really good Denver Bronco defense in Denver. That's going to be a tall task, and the odds makers think so too. Denver, 8.5-point favorites over the Titans in week number 1. Get into the 4:25 slate. This is the Nance and Romo game in week 1. It is the Lions at the Packers. And the Packers made the deal of the offseason. They pulled off the trade for Micah Parsons. They give him a long-term extension, averaging out to $47 million a year. The Cowboys washed their hands of Parsons. Now, Parsons does have a back injury. He's received some epidural shots for. A little bit concerning, I think, if you're a Packers fan, but they've got some good young players on that defense. Obviously, they lost Jair Alexander. He goes to Baltimore in the offseason. But there are some good young players that you should be excited about if you're a Packers fan. Micah Parsons makes them better, and I think he has now elevated them to a Super Bowl contender in the NFC, or at least an NFC championship game contender. And the expectations for Green Bay now rise, and they need it going up against a Detroit Lions team who they'll face in week number 1. Green Bay at home, 1.5-point favorites over Detroit. Texans are in Los Angeles to take on the Rams. Los Angeles, a 3.5-point favorite. And then the big one, Sunday Night Football with Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth, 8:20 Sunday night. It is the Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo right now a 1.5-point favorite in that game. And then Monday Night Football, the first Monday Nighter of the year, will be the Minnesota Vikings up against the Chicago Bears. I'm not going to get into every single team. Minnesota 1.5-point favorites. I'm not going to get into every single team in the league this year, but I am going to tell you who I think is going to make the playoffs. I'm going to give you the way I think they're going to be seeded, and I am going to tell you who I think is going to win the Super Bowl. Here's what I have in the NFC. Let's start with them. I still think the Eagles are one of the best teams in the NFL, and I think they're going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. So I've got them at the number 1 overall seed. Right behind them, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm very high on Tampa. I believe in Baker Mayfield. I believe in that young receiving core. I like their young running backs. They just locked up their offensive lineman, Tristan Wirfs. I believe they signed another offensive lineman, too. They've got good pieces on defense. I believe in Tampa. I don't believe in the rest of that division. New Orleans is obviously down. Atlanta still has question marks with Michael Penix. And Carolina is trying to figure out who exactly they are under Dave Canales. So I like Tampa to win that division and get the number 2 overall seed. Right behind them in the NFC North, I've got the Green Bay Packers winning that division. They dethroned the Detroit Lions. They do not, we'll get into the Minnesota Vikings in a minute, but I think it's Green Bay, then Detroit at the top of the NFC North. Green Bay with the number 3 seed in the NFC. Follow that up, and the 4 seed and final division winner is the Los Angeles Rams. I think that the Rams can be really good. I think they can be NFC Championship / Super Bowl good, but it really depends on Matthew Stafford. Who is Matthew Stafford, and can he stay healthy? I'm guessing Matt misses at least 2 games, and that could be enough to keep them out of one of the top 3 spots in the NFC. Then, wild card teams, 3 of them. I've got Detroit making it. They stumble out of the gates, but they get hot late. They push Green Bay for that division, but they don't win it. They finish with the 5 seed. Then, the Commanders at the 6 seed. I think Jaden Daniels takes a bit of a step back this year. It's a little bit disappointing, but they do get into the playoffs. And then the 7 seed is those Atlanta Falcons. That's right. The Falcons sneak in and get the 7 seed. So there's 2 teams from the NFC South that make it this year. I've got the Atlanta Falcons making the playoffs. Let's move over to the AFC. Top 7 teams, number 1 seed. To me, it's going to be the Buffalo Bills. I think there are 3 really good teams in the NFL. Philadelphia is 1, Buffalo is 1, Baltimore is the other. So I've got Buffalo as the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. I've got Baltimore as the number 2 overall seed in the AFC. And of course, because of that, winning the AFC North. Right behind them, 3rd seed, AFC West champion, Denver Broncos. They've got a good defense. They've got a good head coach. Bo Nix showed me a lot. I like what they're building with their run game. I believe in Sean Payton, even though it could be a bit of a step back for Bo Nix in year number 2. I fell in love with the story about Bo Nix in the offseason that he spent like 5 days with Drew Brees to learn the offense and to learn how to communicate with Sean Payton. That I thought was fascinating. I think because of the schedule that those teams in the AFC West have, and I talked about the Raiders earlier, I think that the Broncos can win that division and knock off Kansas City. And if you remember, they should have beaten Kansas City in Kansas City last year if not for one of those snake oil evil-looking sacrificial blocked field goals that the Chiefs had. There's devil magic, they call it, that ends up winning a game for them. So I've got the Broncos in the 3 seed, and then the number 4 seed is the AFC South champion, Jacksonville Jaguars. Yes, I said it, the Jacksonville Jaguars I have as the AFC South champion, not Indianapolis, not Houston. I've got Jacksonville winning that division. The reason for that is that I am a believer in Liam Cohen and what he built in Tampa with Baker Mayfield. I liked what he did in Los Angeles with the Rams as well. And I think the weapons that they have, not only Travis Hunter, who is going to be good to go and the Heisman Trophy winner, but Brian Thomas, who is an absolute menace and a slept-on wide receiver. They've got explosives in the run game. They've got some pieces on defense. They still have some work to do. And overall, I think that division is weak. I think this is a step forward in a coach-quarterback relationship with Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. They take a step forward, and the Jags win that division and return to the playoffs. That leaves 3 wild card teams in the AFC. What do we got? Well, 5th seed, I'm going to say, is the Kansas City Chiefs. And I say that because I think the AFC West is going to be close. It's one of those that comes down to the final couple weeks of the season. Broncos edge out the Chiefs. Chiefs are the first team out. They are the number 5 seed. Then at the 6th seed, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. Right now, I have the Bengals going 10-7. That's not good enough to win the AFC North. I think it can be good enough to get into the AFC playoffs. I have Cincinnati at number 6. And then the Patriots come in at number 7, another team that I'm very high on. I am a Mike Vrabel believer. I am drinking the Kool-Aid. I liked what I saw out of Drake May at times last year. I like the pieces that they've brought in, Milton Williams on their defense. I liked how they gotten some of those guys out of there, like Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers. Will Campbell, the first-round pick to protect Drake May on the offensive line, I think is a big deal. Travion Henderson out of Ohio State. I think they supplemented their roster nicely, and I think that can be a team that goes in a huge step forward, step in the right direction this year. So I'm going to go with New England as the 7th team in the AFC. Then we get to the playoffs. Let's jump back to the NFC. Obviously, the first round bye goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. And in the wild card round, I'm going to have Tampa beating Atlanta. I've got Washington beating Green Bay. And I've got Detroit beating the Rams in the wild card round. That leads us to Championship Sunday, or leads us to the divisional round, which would have Philadelphia and Washington and Tampa and Detroit. I've got Philly beating Washington. I've got Tampa beating Detroit, setting up an NFC Championship game between Philadelphia and Tampa in Philadelphia. Let's go over to the AFC. I've got Baltimore beating New England in round number 1, that wild card round. I've got the Bengals going to Denver and beating the Broncos in the wild card round to advance to the divisional round. And I've got Kansas City beating Jacksonville. That leads us to the divisional round. Buffalo hosts Cincinnati, and as much as I would love for the Bengals to go do it again, I think Buffalo gets the best of Cincinnati in the divisional round. And then Baltimore beats Kansas City, setting up a AFC Championship game, which is a rematch of Week 1 Sunday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. I've got Buffalo beating Baltimore, and I've got Philadelphia beating Tampa, meaning Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, California, Levi Stadium, the home of the San Francisco 49ers. Super Bowl 60 is going to be the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles. Philly goes back-to-back and tries to, or I should say Philly goes to back-to-back Super Bowls and tries to make it back-to-back Super Bowl victories, but Josh Allen is standing in their way, and the Bills lose again. Yes, if you know anything about the Buffalo Bills, you know they went to 4 Super Bowls in the 90s, and they lost all of them. I think they lose another one this year. Heartbreak for Buffalo. Philadelphia, meanwhile, reigns supreme. They go back-to-back and capture their 3rd Super Bowl title. And obviously, Jalen Hurts solidifies himself as one of the great quarterbacks. Howie Roseman basically gets into Canton with the way that he's handled everything. And the Eagles, who continue to be, in my mind, the gold standard of the National Football League, they win the Super Bowl for the 2nd straight year. That's my prediction as far as the seasons go, or as far as the season goes and the playoffs and all that stuff goes. But what about the awards? What about the MVP award? What about, the Offensive Player of the Year, the Defensive Player of the Year, that sort of stuff? Well, I haven't given that much thought because I do think it's kind of silly. But now that I'm thinking about it, I think I'm going to give the MVP to Joe Burrow. I think he's going to do it. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, if you have Buffalo as the number 1 seed, then obviously it's not going to be Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow can't even win his division, but I think he's going to have a season similar to what he had last year. Let's say he throws 40 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, something along those lines. Bengals get back to 10 wins, get back in the playoffs. Jamar Chase goes crazy again. T. Higgins goes crazy again. I really want Joe Burrow to win an MVP. I think he deserved it last year because if not for him, the Bengals would have been nowhere near the playoffs. They would have been in the top 10 in the NFL draft. But I'm going to say Burrow wins the MVP award this year. Defensive Player of the Year, that's a tough one. I could see Pat Surtain going back-to-back, especially if I'm high on the Broncos. I want to say that one, but I do think Myles Garrett is going to win it again. I just think he's too dominant. He's an athletic freak. I know I'm not really going out on a limb there, but with Mason Graham on that Browns defensive line, he's going to cause some problems. And Myles Garrett is going to be as good as he's ever been. He's going to be the single best part of the Browns season this year. I'm going to take Myles to win the Defensive Player of the Year. Offensive Player of the Year, it's a good question. Saquon Barkley is obviously the reigning champion. I think it's easy to say Jamar Chase, who won it last year. I think it's easy to say somebody like Justin Jefferson. But I'm going to give it to Brian Thomas Jr. from the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he is going to win that Offensive Player of the Year. The Jags are going to be one of the funnest stories in the NFL, winning the AFC South, the emergence of Trevor Lawrence with Liam Cohen. and it's going to go to Brian Thomas Jr. Back-to-back years where an LSU wide receiver wins the Offensive Player of the Year award. Rookie of the Year, I don't know. Have no idea. Offensive rookie, defensive rookie, I have no idea. I want to give it to Travion Henderson. I do, but I'm afraid that might be a little bit of Buckeye bias right there. And I'm not sure exactly what his workload is going to be. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson is there in Tennessee, and I do think they're going to air it out a little bit with Stephon Diggs, but I really want to pick Travion Henderson in that one. But to be honest, I can't make up my mind, so I'm not going to make up my mind. Maybe on the next episode, when I talk Bengals-Browns, maybe I'll make a decision by then. We'll see. I don't know. All right, that's the NFL preview. I'm so glad football is back. I finished watching Hard Knocks. I'm fully ready to go. I've done all my fantasy drafts. I'm in 5 fantasy drafts. It's unbelievable how long it's taken. But yeah, football's here. I'm so excited about it. I'm thrilled. I know that this is not any breaking news to anybody who's been here for a while, but it's the best sport in the world. It really, truly is. And I love all the hype and the excitement and the fantasy aspect and red zone and all this other stuff. It's just the best. Red zone, by the way. You got to stop blaming ESPN. It's not ESPN's fault that red zone is having commercials. That deal hadn't even been approved yet. NFL still holds all the control over it. This is an NFL thing. All right? It has nothing to do with ESPN, but it's a shame that they're taking commercials and putting full-length commercials into NFL red zone. How dare them? I'll probably still watch. I will still watch. Either way, I'm excited. More on the Bengals and the Browns coming up on Friday. We'll have full injury report. I'll give you my thoughts on how I think the game is going to go, and I'll run through the Bengals' schedule as a whole. I said earlier, I got the Bengals at 10-7. I'll explain why, and we'll also talk extensively about the Bengals and the Browns Week 1 coming up. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. If you liked what you heard, you can hear me weekdays from noon to 3 on ESPN 1530. I co-host a show called Cincy 360 with Tony Pike. You can also follow me on any and all social medias at Auty Elmore, AUTYELMORE. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, share the podcast, tell somebody about the podcast, follow me on Twitter at Auty Elmore, and we'll just see what happens. We'll see if we can just grow this thing. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I have to be better, though. You know what I mean? All right, have fun. Be safe. Go Bucs.